5 seconds. Chloe had 5 seconds before the most powerful man in the city drank poison from a crystal glass. 5 seconds to choose between staying invisible or crossing a line she could never uncross. 5 seconds that would rewrite her entire existence. She was nobody. A woman with trembling hands and medical bills folded in her apron pocket. On that suffocating winter evening, she was just trying to survive her shift, collect her wages, and return home to her dying brother. She wasn't looking for danger. She wasn't looking to be noticed. But sometimes fate doesn't care what you're looking for. Sometimes it backs you into a corner with a single impossible choice. Stay silent and watch evil triumph, or step forward and risk everything you've fought to protect. And Chloe, exhausted, frightened, merely human Chloe, made a choice that saved the Vampire King's life. Before we continue, let us know in the comment section what time it is and where you are watching from. And remember to like and subscribe because tomorrow I have saved something extra special for you and I don't want you to miss it. Now let's continue. Chloe's day had started 14 hours ago. Her first shift was at the diner on 5th Street, where she poured coffee for construction workers who tipped in quarters. Her second was at the warehouse, sorting packages until her shoulders screamed. And now, as midnight crept closer, she stood in the grand ballroom of the Knight's Fire, balancing a silver tray and praying her legs wouldn't give out. The blood and silver gala wasn't meant for people like her. It was a world of crystal chandeliers and predators in tailored suits, where the air itself felt heavy with power and old money. She moved through the crowd like a ghost, refilling glasses, clearing plates, keeping her eyes down. That was the first rule they'd taught her. Never look them in the eye. Never draw attention. Never forget what they were. Vampires didn't need to announce themselves. You felt them. In the coldness of their touch when they handed back a glass. In the way conversations stopped when they entered a room. In the absolute certainty that if you made one wrong move, no one would even remember your name. But Chloe had learned to be invisible. It was a skill she'd perfected over 3 years of serving the elite, of biting her tongue when they spoke about humans like livestock, of smiling politely when they didn't tip because why would they? She was nothing. They were eternal. And she told herself it didn't matter. None of it mattered as long as the checks cleared, because every dollar she earned went to the same place, Noah's medical bills. Her little brother was 12 years old, and fighting a battle his body was losing. The treatments were experimental, expensive, and his only chance. She'd already sold everything she owned. She'd already begged every bank in the city. This job, this humiliating, soul-crushing job, was all she had left. So she smiled. She nodded. She pretended not to hear the things they said. Tonight's event was worse than usual. The ballroom was packed with the city's most dangerous names, and the tension was suffocating. She didn't know why, and she didn't ask. Curiosity was a luxury she couldn't afford. She was refilling champagne at the East Wing bar when she saw him. Roman Hudson, the Vampire King. He sat at a private table near the back, his platinum hair catching the low light, his pale face carved from marble. He didn't move like other men. He didn't need to. Power radiated from him like heat from a flame, and everyone in the room bent toward it, whether they wanted to or not. Chloe kept her distance. Men like him didn't notice women like her, and that was exactly how she wanted it. But fate, as she would soon learn, didn't care what she wanted. Because across from the king sat another man in a navy suit, and in his hand was a vial of liquid so clear it looked like water. And Chloe saw everything. It happened so fast that if Chloe had blinked, she would have missed it. The man in the navy suit, she didn't know his name, didn't need to, reached into his jacket pocket with the casual grace of someone checking the time. His fingers emerged holding something small. A vial. Clear glass. Clear liquid inside. And then, with a practiced flick of his wrist, he tilted it over Roman Hudson's wine glass. The poison made no sound as it fell. No ripple. No change in color. Just a few drops of something that looked like water disappearing into deep red wine. Chloe's heart stopped. She was standing 12 feet away, holding an empty tray, frozen in the space between the bar and the kitchen. No one else had seen it. The other guests were laughing, drinking, locked in their own conversations. The servers moved like clockwork, eyes down, minds elsewhere. But Chloe had seen everything. And worse, she understood what it meant. Roman Hudson was about to drink poison. The Vampire King. The most powerful man in the city. And if he died here, tonight, in this room, chaos would follow. Blood would follow. And people like her, invisible, powerless people, would be the first to burn in the aftermath. But that wasn't why her hands started shaking. It was simpler than that. She had watched a man try to murder someone right in front of her, and if she did nothing, she would have to live with that for the rest of her life. Her feet moved before her brain caught up. She crossed the ballroom floor with a kind of calm that only comes from years of being unseen. She picked up a fresh bottle of wine from the service station. She let her face go blank, her movements smooth and practiced. Just another server. Just another shadow. The man in the navy suit didn't even glance at her as she approached the table. But Roman Hudson did. His pale eyes lifted, sharp and cold as winter glass, and locked onto her with a kind of focus that made her stomach drop. He didn't say anything, didn't move, just watched. Chloe's pulse roared in her ears. She stopped beside the table, and in a voice that didn't shake, somehow impossibly didn't shake, she said, "Pardon the interruption, gentlemen. May I refresh your glasses?" The man in the navy suit waved her off, without looking. "We're fine." But Roman tilted his head, just slightly, his gaze never leaving her face. "Go ahead." She moved. Her hands were steady now, locked into the muscle memory of 1,000 shifts. She reached for the king's glass first, the poisoned one, and lifted it with a polite smile. Then she reached for the other man's glass, still half full, and set it down in front of Roman. And in the same smooth motion, she placed the poisoned glass in front of the man in the navy suit. It took 3 seconds. Maybe 4. No one noticed. No one except the king. She poured fresh wine into a third glass and set it beside Roman's new one, her hands moving like clockwork, her face a mask of professional politeness. "Enjoy your evening, gentlemen." She turned to leave. And that's when she felt it. Roman Hudson's gaze, burning into her back like a brand. He knew. He had watched every movement, every breath, every impossible choice she had just made. And now, there was no going back. Roman Hudson lifted the glass. Not the poison one. The clean one. The one Chloe had placed in front of him with trembling hands and a face carved from forced calm. He raised it slowly, deliberately, his eyes never leaving the man across from him. The man in the navy suit. The man whose name Chloe would later learn was Merrick Clark. And he drank. The room didn't stop. The music didn't swell. No one gasped or screamed. Life at the Blood and Silver Gala continued exactly as it had, because no one else knew that the world had just shifted on its axis. No one except 3 people. Chloe stood near the bar, her tray clutched against her chest like a shield, her heartbeat so loud she was certain everyone could hear it. She couldn't leave, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She could only watch. Roman set the glass down with a soft clink, his expression unreadable. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin, and smiled. Not a warm smile, not a kind one. A smile that looked like a wolf baring its teeth. Excellent vintage, he said softly. Merrick's face didn't change, but Chloe saw it. The smallest flicker, a tightness around his eyes, a pause, just a fraction too long, before he reached for his own glass. He knew the plan had failed. Roman's gaze slid to the glass in Merrick's hand, the poisoned one, and his smile widened. You haven't touched yours. Merrick's fingers froze on the stem. For a moment, the two men stared at each other across the table, and the air between them turned sharp enough to cut. Chloe felt it from 15 feet away. The weight of it, the danger. Then Merrick laughed. A smooth, practiced sound. I'm pacing myself. He set the glass down without drinking and rose to his feet. If you'll excuse me, Your Majesty, I've just remembered an urgent matter. Of course, Roman said, his voice soft as silk and twice as deadly. Merrick walked away.
Steady, composed.
But Chloe saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand flexed at his side. He knew he'd been caught. And worse, he knew someone had seen him. Chloe's stomach twisted. She needed to leave. Needed to disappear before Merrick's eyes found her. Before he started asking questions. Before he realized the only person who could have swapped those glasses was the invisible girl with the tray. She turned toward the kitchen. Mississippi. The word cut through the noise like a blade. Chloe froze. Roman Hudson was looking directly at her. Not through her. Not past her. At her. Her legs felt like water, but she forced herself to walk back to his table. She stopped a respectful distance away and kept her eyes down. Yes, sir? He didn't speak right away. Just studied her with those pale, unblinking eyes, as if he were reading a language written on her bones. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a leather checkbook. He wrote something in smooth, deliberate strokes, tore the check free, and placed it on the table between them. For your service tonight, he said quietly. Chloe's breath caught. Her hands trembled as she picked it up.
It wasn't a tip.
It wasn't gratitude. It was a check made out to her name, her full name, which she'd never told him, and when her eyes dropped to the amount, the floor seemed to tilt beneath her feet. Enough to pay for Noah's treatment. All of it. Every last procedure. Every medication. Every scan. Everything. Her throat closed. She couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. You saved my life, Roman said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. I don't forget debts. And then he stood, buttoned his coat, and walked out of the ballroom like a king leaving his throne. Chloe stood frozen, staring down at the check in her shaking hands. Her brother would live. But she had just become visible to the most dangerous man in the city. And somewhere across the room, Merrick Clark was watching. Chloe didn't remember the bus ride home. She clutched her purse against her chest, the check folded inside like a secret too dangerous to speak aloud. Her mind was a storm. Noah would live. The treatments. The medicine. Everything he needed. She'd done it. She'd saved him. But the weight in her stomach told a different story. Because men like Merrick Clark didn't forget witnesses. The apartment building looked the same as always. Cracked stairs. Peeling paint. A flickering hallway light that the landlord never fixed. She climbed to the 3rd floor on autopilot, her keys already in her hand. She unlocked the door.
And stopped.
The air was wrong. It took her brain a moment to catch up to what her body already knew. The door had been locked. She was sure of it. She was always sure of it. But the apartment felt open, exposed. Noah. Her voice came out thin. No answer. Her heart kicked into her throat. She pushed the door open wider and stepped inside. The living room had been destroyed. Couch cushions ripped open, stuffing scattered across the floor. Drawers yanked out and overturned. Books swept off the shelves. Her small desk shoved away from the wall, papers everywhere. Someone had torn through the place like a hurricane, looking for something. Or sending a message. Noah. She ran to his bedroom and shoved the door open. He was there. Safe. Asleep in his bed, his small chest rising and falling beneath the blankets. His medication sat untouched on the nightstand. He hadn't woken up. He didn't know. Chloe's knees buckled. She grabbed the doorframe to stay upright, relief and terror flooding through her in equal measure. He was okay. He was okay. But someone had been here. She moved back into the living room on shaking legs, her mind racing. They hadn't taken anything. The old TV was still there. Her laptop, cheap and half-broken, sat on the floor where it had been knocked off the desk. Even the cash she kept in the kitchen drawer for emergencies was untouched. This wasn't a robbery. This was a search. And she knew exactly what they'd been looking for. Proof. Witnesses. Loose ends. Her stomach twisted. She pressed a hand to her mouth, forcing herself to breathe, forcing herself to think. Merrick Clark had realized someone saw him, and now he was tying up loose threads. She was the thread. Chloe stumbled to the window and looked down at the street below. Empty. Dark. But she felt eyes on her, felt the weight of being watched, being hunted. She couldn't stay here, but she couldn't run either. Noah was too sick to move. The treatments were scheduled. If she disappeared now, if she pulled him out of care, he'd die. She was trapped. And the worst part, the part that made her want to scream, was that she'd done the right thing. She'd saved a man's life. And now her brother was in danger because of it. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out with trembling hands. Unknown number. The message was short. For words. You have been seen. Chloe's blood turned to ice. She looked at Noah's door. At the torn-apart living room. At the check still folded in her purse. She had saved the Vampire King. And now she needed him to save her. The black sedan appeared at exactly midnight. Chloe saw it from the window, idling at the curb below her building like a shadow with headlights. Sleek. Expensive. The kind of car that didn't belong in her neighborhood. She knew who it was before the back door opened. Her phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Come down. Chloe's heart hammered against her ribs. She looked back at Noah's room. He was still asleep, still safe. For now. She grabbed her jacket, locked the apartment door behind her, and went downstairs. The cold night air bit at her skin as she stepped onto the sidewalk. The sedan sat waiting, engine purring. The back window rolled down smoothly, and Roman Hudson's pale face emerged from the shadows inside. He didn't smile, didn't speak, just watched her with those sharp, unreadable eyes. Chloe stopped a few feet from the car, arms crossed. You knew. I did. Then why didn't you stop him? Roman tilted his head slightly, considering her. Because I wanted to see who would move first. Merrick has been circling for months, but he's careful, patient. I needed him to make a mistake. His gaze sharpened. You gave him that mistake. Chloe's stomach dropped. So I was bait. No. Roman's voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. You were unexpected. I didn't anticipate someone like you would notice, let alone act. She clenched her fists. Someone ransacked my apartment tonight. Sent me a message. They know I saw. They do. And you're just going to let them come after me? Roman leaned closer to the window, and for the first time, she saw something almost like emotion flicker across his face. I'm here, aren't I? Chloe's pulse spiked. She glanced back at her building, at the third-floor window where Noah slept. What do you want from me? The same thing you want. Survival. Roman's fingers rested on the edge of the window, pale and still. Merrick Clark is not a man who forgives witnesses. He will come for you. And when he does, he won't stop at just you. He'll find everyone you care about, everyone who could be used against you. Her blood ran cold. Roman continued, his voice measured. I don't know what you're protecting, but I know desperation when I see it. The 3 jobs, the exhaustion in your eyes, the way you looked at that check like it was oxygen.
He paused.
Whatever it is you're fighting for, Merrick will find it, and he will use it to destroy you. Chloe's throat tightened. So, what do you want from me? Help. Roman leaned back slightly. Merrick is planning a coup. He has allies in my court, resources I haven't yet traced, and enough ambition to burn this city to the ground if it means taking my throne. I've been hunting him in the shadows for months. But now, thanks to you, he's exposed. Thanks to me, I'm a target. Yes. Roman's gaze locked onto hers. Which is why I'm offering you a choice. Chloe's hands trembled. What choice? Run and die. Merrick will find you within the week. No amount of money will save you. Her chest tightened. Or, Roman continued, his voice soft and deadly, stay. Help me burn the traitors out. Become my eyes in places I cannot go. And in return, I will protect you. I will protect what matters to you. And when this is over, you'll have more than survival. Chloe stared at him, her mind racing. She thought of Noah, of the ransacked apartment, of the text message still burning on her phone. You're asking me to be your spy. I'm asking you to choose whether you want to live. The street was silent, empty. Just her and the vampire king, and a choice that would define everything. Chloe exhaled slowly. If I do this, if I help you, you protect him. My brother. No matter what. Roman's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Understanding. Respect. You have my word. She nodded once. Then I'm in. Roman's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. Pack what you need. You and your brother will be moved to a secure location within the hour. My people will handle the rest. The window rolled up, smooth and silent, and the sedan pulled away into the night. Chloe stood alone on the sidewalk, her breath misting in the cold air. She had just made a deal with the vampire king, and there was no going back. For 3 days, Chloe had allowed herself to hope. The facility Roman provided wasn't a hospital. It was something better. Private.
Clean. Quiet.
Noah had his own room with actual sunlight, nurses who smiled instead of rushing past, and equipment that didn't look like it belonged in a museum. The treatments had started immediately. Real treatments. The kind that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. And for the first time in 2 years, Noah looked like a kid again instead of a ghost. Chloe sat beside his bed, watching him sleep, her chest tight with something she'd almost forgotten how to feel. Relief. Maybe even gratitude. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her stomach dropped before she even opened it. The message had no words, just a photo. It was Noah, asleep in his bed, taken from the doorway of his room, taken minutes ago. Her blood turned to ice. A second message appeared. Even kings can't protect everyone. Then a third. Kill Roman Hudson.
Or I stop his treatment.
You have 48 hours. Chloe's hands shook so badly, she nearly dropped the phone. She looked up at Noah's door. It was closed.
Locked.
Security was outside. Roman's people were everywhere. But Merrick had still gotten close enough to take that picture. Close enough to touch him. Her breath came in shallow gasps. She wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted to grab Noah and disappear into a place where monsters like Merrick Clark couldn't find them. But there was no such place. She stared at the photo, at her brother's sleeping face, at the impossible choice Merrick had just dropped into her lap. Betray Roman and lose everything. Refuse Merrick and watch Noah die. Her mind raced. She could run, take Noah and vanish. But Merrick would find them. He'd found them here, in the one place that was supposed to be safe. She could do what Merrick wanted. Kill Roman. But even if she succeeded, and she wouldn't, Merrick would kill her the moment she was no longer useful. And Noah would die anyway. There was no winning. No way out. Unless. Chloe stood, her legs unsteady, her heart pounding. She walked out of Noah's room, past the security guard who nodded at her, down the hall to the private elevator that led to Roman's wing of the estate. She didn't have a plan, didn't have leverage, didn't have anything except the truth. And maybe that was enough. The elevator doors opened. Roman stood at the far end of the room, his back to her, staring out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city below. He didn't turn. "You're afraid." It wasn't a question. Chloe's voice came out steadier than she felt. Merrick got to Noah. Now Roman turned. His pale eyes locked onto hers, sharp and cold. She held up her phone, showing him the photo. "He wants me to kill you. 48 hours, or he stops Noah's treatment." Silence. Roman crossed the room slowly, took the phone from her hand, and studied the image. His expression didn't change, but something dark flickered behind his eyes. "You came to tell me," he said quietly. "Instead of running. Instead of trying alone." "I can't beat him alone." Chloe's throat tightened. "But maybe we can." Roman handed back her phone, his gaze never leaving hers. "Then we don't fight him." His voice was calm, calculated. "We let him think he's already won." Chloe frowned. "What do you mean?" "You're going to do exactly what Merrick wants." Roman's eyes gleamed with cold intelligence. "You're going to agree to kill me." Her heart stopped. "What?" "You'll send him a message. Tell him you'll do it. But you need time. You need access." Roman began to pace, his mind already 10 steps ahead. "I'll bring you into my manor publicly. Make you my thrall. My consultant. Give you every appearance of trust and proximity. He'll think I'm getting close to you." "Exactly." Roman stopped, turning to face her. "And while he believes you're working for him, you'll be feeding him exactly what I want him to know. False schedules. Fabricated vulnerabilities. Will make him think he's controlling you, when really, you're the bait that draws him into the open." Chloe's pulse raced. It was dangerous. Insane. But it might actually work. And when he takes the bait? Roman's smile was cold and sharp as a blade. "We spring the trap. At the next gala. He'll come thinking I'm vulnerable, and instead, he'll walk into a room full of witnesses and guards." Chloe stared at him, her mind racing through the plan, through all the ways it could go wrong. "If he suspects for even a second that I'm lying, he'll kill Noah." Roman's voice was steady. "Which is why you'll have to be perfect. Convincing. You'll have to make Merrick believe that you're desperate enough, frightened enough, to betray me." She thought of Noah, of the photo, of the 48 hours ticking down. "I can do that," she said quietly, "because I am that desperate." Roman studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Then let's begin." He gestured toward a desk in the corner. "Send him your reply.
Tell him you're in."
And Chloe, his pale eyes locked onto hers. "Once you send that message, there's no turning back. You'll be playing the most dangerous game of your life." Chloe's hands trembled as she picked up her phone. She thought of Noah sleeping peacefully down the hall. She thought of the choice she'd made in that ballroom weeks ago, the choice to step forward instead of staying silent. And she typed, "I'll do it, but I need time to get close. Give me 2 weeks." She hit send. The trap was set. Now all they had to do was survive it. His reply came within the hour. 2 weeks. Not a day more. "Prove your loyalty, and I'll spare your brother. Betray me, and you'll watch him die. She moved into Roman's manor the next morning. The staff watched her with thinly veiled curiosity as she settled into her new quarters. The human who'd sold herself to save her brother. It was a story they'd all seen before, and it made the lie easier to sell. Roman played his part flawlessly. He kept her close, brought her to meetings, let her sit in on private discussions with his advisors. To anyone watching, she looked like a desperate woman clinging to the only protection she could find. To Merrick, she looked like opportunity. The first test came on the third day. Her phone buzzed during breakfast. I need proof. What's his schedule this week? Chloe's pulse spiked, but her hands stayed steady. She pulled up the file Roman had prepared, the fake schedule, and typed exactly what they'd planned. Tuesday night. Private meeting with his financial advisor. Third floor study. Light security. Only 2 guards. He'll be alone from 10 p.m. to midnight. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. The reply was immediate.
Good.
Keep going. Tuesday night, Roman staged the meeting exactly as Chloe had described. She watched from her window as a dark sedan idled across the street for 20 minutes, then disappeared. Merrick's people, verifying her intel. When Roman returned to his study later that evening, he found her pacing.
They were watching, she said.
I know. His voice was calm. They saw exactly what we wanted them to see. What if he sends someone inside next time? Then they'll see the same thing. Roman poured himself a drink, utterly unbothered. A king growing complacent. Guards stretched thin. Vulnerabilities forming. Chloe's hands trembled. This only works if he believes I'm actually going to kill you. Roman's pale eyes met hers. Then make him believe it. The messages came faster after that. Does he trust you? Yes. When does he meet with his war council? Friday. 8 p.m. East Wing. Security. Lighter than usual. He thinks the threat has passed. Every answer she gave was a lie. Every piece of intel was bait. And Merrick swallowed it whole. By the end of the first week, his messages had shifted from questions to commands. I need his location during the gala. Find out who his personal guards are that night. When will he be most vulnerable? Chloe fed him everything. Roman's schedule. His routes through the manor. The timing of guard rotations that didn't actually exist. And with every message, Merrick grew bolder, more confident, more certain that he'd turned the woman who saved the king into the weapon that would kill him. Late one night, Roman found her in the library, staring at her phone. He's asking when I'll strike, she said quietly. Roman sat across from her. What did you tell him? That I'm waiting for the right moment. That I can't afford to fail. And he believed you. He wants to. Chloe looked up. He thinks I'm weak. Desperate. That I'll do anything to save Noah. You are desperate, Roman said, not unkindly. That's what makes you convincing. She hated that he was right. 3 more days, Roman continued. The gala. He'll make his move then, because you've painted me as vulnerable, distracted. And when he steps into that ballroom expecting an easy kill, we'll have him. Chloe's throat tightened. And if something goes wrong? Roman's expression didn't change. Then we adapt. But nothing will go wrong. You've played this perfectly. She wanted to believe him. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Merrick. The gala. That's when you do it. Confirm. Chloe's fingers hovered over the keys. Then she typed. Confirmed. He won't see it coming. She hit send. Roman stood and moved to the window, his silhouette sharp against the city lights. 3 days, Miss John. Then we see if a human can outsmart a centuries-old traitor. Chloe stared at her phone, at the message that had just sealed both their fates. I guess we're about to find out. The Night Spire Hotel had never looked more beautiful or more dangerous. Chloe stood at Roman's side in the grand ballroom, her crimson dress catching the light from 1,000 candles. The crowd was even larger than the first gala, vampire elite from across the region, all gathered to celebrate the king's continued reign. None of them knew they were about to witness his assassination. Or at least, that's what Merrick believed. Chloe's heart hammered against her ribs, but her face remained perfectly calm. She'd spent 2 weeks preparing for this moment. 2 weeks of lies and double crosses, and walking the knife's edge between two monsters. Tonight, it all came to an end. "He's here," Roman murmured beside her, his voice barely audible over the music. Chloe's eyes swept the room and found him. Merrick Clark, dressed in an immaculate black suit, moving through the crowd with the easy confidence of a man who thought he'd already won. Their eyes met across the ballroom. He smiled. Cold slithered down Chloe's spine, but she forced herself to nod. Just slightly. Just enough. The signal she'd promised him. "Everything is going according to plan." Roman's hand brushed hers. "East balcony. 15 minutes. She nodded and watched as he began moving through the crowd, shaking hands, playing the gracious host. To anyone watching, he looked completely at ease. But Chloe knew better. She drifted toward the edges of the room, positioning herself near the hallway that led to the east wing. She spotted them one by one. Merrick's conspirators, the ones she'd learned to identify during her time in Roman's manor. The woman in emerald green. The man with the silver cufflinks. A server who watched Roman a little too carefully. They were all here. All waiting. The minutes crawled by like hours. Then, at exactly midnight, Roman stepped onto the east balcony. Alone. Just as Chloe had told Merrick he would be. She held her breath. Merrick moved. Smooth and silent, he slipped through the crowd toward the balcony doors, his allies following like shadows. They thought they were hunters closing in on prey. They had no idea they were walking into a cage. Merrick stepped onto the balcony. His conspirators fanned out behind him, blocking the exits. Roman stood with his back to them, looking out over the city. "Your Majesty," Merrick said softly, "I'm afraid your reign ends tonight." Roman didn't turn. "Does it?" And that's when the lights blazed on. Floodlights from every corner of the balcony. Guards emerging from hidden positions, weapons drawn. More pouring in from the hallway, cutting off every escape route. Merrick froze, his face going white. Roman turned slowly, and his smile was colder than winter. "Did you really think," he said quietly, "that I wouldn't know?" Merrick's eyes darted to the guards, to his trapped conspirators, and finally to the ballroom doors where Chloe now stood. Understanding dawned on his face. Then rage. "You," he breathed. Chloe stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear screaming through her veins. "Every message, every piece of intel, every weakness, I fed you." She met his eyes. It was all a lie. Merrick's hands clenched into fists. "You said you'd kill him. You promised." "I lied." Her voice didn't shake. "Just like you lied when you said you'd spare my brother." For a moment, Merrick looked like he might lunge at her. But Roman's guards closed in, and steel pressed against throats. Roman's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Merrick Clark, you're charged with conspiracy, treason, and attempted regicide. Your allies will face the same judgment." He gestured, and the guards began restraining them one by one. "Take them." Merrick struggled, but it was over. He'd lost, and he knew it. As the guards dragged him past Chloe, he hissed, "This isn't finished." "Yes," she said quietly. "It is." The ballroom fell silent as Merrick and his conspirators were led away in chains. Every vampire in attendance had witnessed it. There would be no denying what had happened here tonight. Roman stepped beside Chloe, his pale eyes scanning the crowd. "You did well," he said softly. Chloe's legs felt like water, but she stayed standing. "Is it really over?" "For now." Roman turned to face her fully. "You didn't just save my life tonight, Miss John. You helped me root out a cancer that's been growing in this court for years." She looked at him, this immortal king who'd trusted a desperate waitress with his life. "What happens now?" Roman's expression softened, just slightly. "Now, you decide who you want to be." Chloe glanced back at the ballroom, at the sea of immortal faces watching her. She wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't nobody. And for the first time in her life, that didn't terrify her. 3 weeks after the gala, Merrick Clark was exiled from the city. Chloe didn't attend the proceedings.
She didn't need to.
Roman had made it clear that traitors faced 2 choices, exile or execution. Merrick had chosen survival, which meant he'd spend the rest of his immortal life far from the seat of power he'd tried to steal. His conspirators weren't as fortunate. Some fled. Others faced justice. The vampire court had been purged, and what remained was stronger for it. Chloe stood at the window of her room, not the guest suite anymore, but permanent quarters in the East Wing, and watched the city wake beneath a winter sunrise. It looked different now. Or maybe she was the one who'd changed. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." Roman entered, carrying a tablet. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes that made her pulse quicken. "Noah's latest results," he said, handing her the device. Chloe's hands trembled as she scanned the report. Medical terms she'd learned by heart over 2 years of desperate research. Numbers that had always been too low, markers that had always been wrong. But not anymore. "He's in full remission," Roman said quietly. The tablet slipped from her fingers. She caught it at the last second, her vision blurring with tears she hadn't realized were falling. "Full remission," she whispered. "The treatment worked. He'll need monitoring, but the doctors expect a complete recovery." Roman's voice softened. "Your brother is going to live, Chloe." She pressed a hand to her mouth, trying to hold back the sob building in her chest. For 2 years, she'd carried the weight of his illness like a stone around her neck. The fear, the exhaustion, the certainty that no matter how hard she fought, it would never be enough. And now it was over. "Thank you," she managed. "Thank you." Roman stepped closer. "I told you I don't forget debts. You saved my life twice. This is the least I can do." Chloe looked up at him, this ancient king who'd put his trust in a nobody from nowhere. "I don't know how to repay you. You already have." Roman gestured toward the window, toward the city beyond. "You helped me save this kingdom from tearing itself apart. You proved that courage doesn't require fangs or centuries of power. You stood in a room full of monsters and didn't blink." She let out a shaky laugh. "I blinked plenty, but you didn't run." His pale eyes held hers. "And now I'm offering you something more than gratitude." Chloe's breath caught. "What?" "A position.
Permanent.
As my personal advisor." Roman's expression was serious. "You see things others miss. You move through spaces where I cannot. And most importantly, you've earned the respect of people who don't give it freely. You want me to stay. I want you to help me rebuild what Merrick tried to destroy. To be the eyes I need in a court that's learned to hide in shadows."
He paused.
"If you want it." Chloe turned back to the window. A month ago, she'd been a waitress juggling 3 jobs, invisible to everyone who mattered. Now she stood in a palace, her brother saved, and the vampire king was asking her to help him rule. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt like finally stepping into the light. "I want it," she said. Roman nodded once, a hint of a smile crossing his lips. Then welcome to the court, Advisor John. That evening, Chloe stood on the grand balcony overlooking the city. The same balcony where Merrick had been captured, where the trap had sprung and her life had changed forever. Below, the city glittered like scattered diamonds, a kingdom of mortals and immortals coexisting in a fragile balance. And somewhere in that vast sprawl, Noah was sleeping peacefully, his body finally healing, his future finally secure. Roman joined her at the railing, 2 glasses of wine in hand. He offered her one.
To new beginnings, he said.
Chloe accepted the glass, a smile tugging at her lips. To not being invisible. They drank in comfortable silence, watching the city breathe. She wasn't a waitress anymore. Wasn't a desperate woman clinging to survival by her fingernails. She was Chloe John, advisor to the Vampire King. A woman who'd walked through fire and emerged unburned. A woman who'd proven that even in a world of monsters, sometimes the most dangerous thing you could be was simply, impossibly human. And brave enough to act when it mattered most. Roman glanced at her. Regrets. Chloe thought of the 4 seconds that started it all. The choice she'd made in a crowded ballroom when she could have stayed silent. None, she said. And she meant it. The city stretched out before them, full of shadows and light, danger and promise. And for the first time in her life, Chloe wasn't afraid of what came next. She was ready. If Chloe's courage to step forward when it mattered most touched your heart, don't let this story disappear into the shadows. Hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to remember their own strength, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Thanks for watching.